Hey, y'all, come look at this.
So I think for most Americans, sort of news about South Africa ended in 1994. Both literally, we stopped getting a lot of news from the country, but also people's views about it stopped evolving then. That was the year that that apartheid ended, I guess, officially. You had elections. Nelson Mandela is still a hero in the United States, often referred to by politicians. And it's only been, I think, in American media in the past couple of months that stories have come out of South Africa that have a lot of Americans have read that actually the country seems to be falling apart and that the government is kind of genocidally racist.
Yeah.
And then President Trump in the past month has basically said the same thing. And it's shocking to a lot of people, I think, how bad it is and how racist it is, far more than apartheid ever was.
Stop it. Get some help.
The recent interview between Tucker Carlson and Ernst Roets has sparked outrage and concern, not only for its promotion of blatant falsehoods about South Africa, but also for the dangerous implication it carries for the country's security, economy, and social cohesion. As someone deeply invested in the truth and the future of Africa, I am appalled by the lack of fact-checking, perpetuation of harmful stereotype and the failure to address the historical and systematic balances or imbalances that continue to plague our country or our continent. Number 2, the lies about white farmer killings. One of the most egregious claims made during this interview was the assertion that white farmers in South Africa are being systematically targeted and killed. This narrative is not only false, but also dangerous and misleading. Let's break it down. Statistics don't support this claim. According to South Africa's crime statistics, the murder rate amongst white farmers is not disproportionately higher than the other groups that lives in South Africa. In fact, the overall murder rate in South Africa is alarmingly high, affecting all racial groups. The claim that white farmers are being specifically targeted is a distortion of reality. Black and white farmers. The narrative often ignores the fact that black farmers also face violence and land dispossession. However, their struggles are rarely highlighted in the international media. The focus of white farmers alone creates a skewed perception on the situation on the ground. To South Africa's security and economy. By spreading these lies, figures like Ernst Roets and Tucker Carlson are fueling fear and division. This not only risks inciting racial tension, but also undermine investor confidence in South Africa's economy. The international community must be wary of such sensationalist claim and seek out credible sources and fact check. Land ownership, a global perspective. Let's give perspective. Let's give a global perspective when it comes to land ownership. The interview also touched on land ownership in South Africa, with Roy suggesting that white South Africans are being oppressed. This claim is not only laughable, but also ignores the historical context of land disposition in this country. Let's take a broader look on the land ownership globally. We'll start with South Africa. South African land imbalance. In South Africa, white people who make up less than 10% of the population own more than 70% of the land. This is direct results of colonialism and apartheid. Where land was forcibly taken from South Africans, the current push for land reform includes expropriation land without compensation. It's not about revenge, but about addressing these historical injustices and creating a more equitable society. Let's also look at land ownership in the USA, Europe, and Asia. In the United States, white Americans own vast majority of the land and wealth, while black Americans and other groups who were historically enslaved and oppressed own a fraction of it. In Europe, land ownership is also heavily skewed in the favor of the native population, with immigrants and minorities owning a significantly less amount of land. In Asia, while the variation and trend is similar, native population own a majority of the land, while foreign ownership is limited. The comparison is clear. In countries where minority group historically took land and wealth by force, the group continue to hold disproportionate power and resources. South Africa is no exception. The reality of oppression in South Africa. To claim that South Africa or white South Africans are oppressed is to ignore the stark realities of inequality in this country. Let's look at the numbers. For an example, average earnings. Black South Africans earn significantly less than their white counterparts. According to the recent data, the average income for a white South African is nearly 6 times higher than that of a black South African. This disparity is direct results of decades of systematic racism and economic exclusion.
Now joined by a farmer, Ruan Krokamp. So maybe just confirm if indeed you are Afrikaner and you are South African.
Goeiemiddag. Ja, ek is 'n Suid-Afrikaner by bloed en ek sal altyd ene wees. Ek sal nie in 'n ander land kan bly nie.
Yeah. You won't go and live in any other country. But what do you then make of this executive order, which has so much implications for South Africa?
Well, all I can say is that Donald Trump must leave his things in America and we can stay in South Africa. So, ja, dis ons land en ons wil hierso bly.
What are you farming?
I'm farming broiler chickens now and we're starting with pigs also. Yeah.
So in other words, you are not going to take up this offer by the Americans for you to go and be a refugee in the United States?
No, I'm not a refugee. Me, I come from South Africa. I'm indigenous from here. Yeah, I'll maybe go take a holiday there, but I won't go to stay there. Yes.
He says that the government of South Africa is doing very bad things to you and your community. Is that the sentiment you have?
Well, no, our government is very good to us. They actually just fixed our road there on the gravel road and they're building RTP houses for the people, and that actually boosts our business because now there's going to be more people buying chickens from us and eggs and also pig meat and so on. So I think that the government is actually doing good for us now.
The organization AfriForum is taking the flag, with many South Africans blaming them. On the one hand, they are saying that they are fighting for the rights of the minorities, the Afrikaners in this country. Where do you stand on this whole issue, particularly where people are blaming AfriForum for this mess we find ourselves in?
Well, I don't know about AfriForum because I don't know anything about him. So, yeah, I can't answer that. Sorry.
Yeah, but generally, do you see any future for you and the Afrikaner community in this country?
Yes, there's a very good and bright future for us. I've got my son. He's also, we are working hard for him for a future here. So I wouldn't see him growing up in another country. I don't think we would survive in another country.
What then would be your message to people who, both South Africans and Americans, who are spreading this message that the government in South Africa is persecuting Afrikaners community?
I think they should stop spreading lies and propaganda because it's all fake news. So yeah, they should stop spreading propaganda. There's crime in every country. So I mean, we solve our own problems here. So yes, thank you.
U.S. President Donald Trump's offer to take in white South Africans as refugees fleeing persecution may not spur quite the rush he anticipated. An executive order he signed on Friday provided for resettlement in the U.S. of, quote, Afrikaners in South Africa who are victims of unjust racial discrimination as refugees. Afrikaners are mostly white South African descendants of Dutch and French settlers, some tracing back their roots in the country to the 17th century. But it's not clear they want to flee the place they've called home for hundreds of years.
Yeah, why would you want to go? Hasn't been any really bad taking over of land. The people are carrying on like normal. And You know, what are you going to do over there?
That was the response from Neville van der Merwe, a white 78-year-old pensioner living in Cape Town. And he had this to say about Trump cutting off aid to his country.
We all know how Mr. Trump behaves, you know, so it's not, why should they do that? It is being spiteful.
Trump is pushing back against a law signed last month by President Cyril Ramaphosa, aimed at addressing the country's unequal land ownership. White South Africans make up less than a tenth of the country's population, but a legacy of the racist apartheid government left 3/4 of privately owned land in the hands of the white minority, after 3.5 million black people were forced from their homes. The new law makes it easier for the state to expropriate land for what it says is the public interest.
And we will not be bullied.
Ramaphosa's governing African National Congress, or ANC, has defended the measure and accused Trump of amplifying misinformation propagated by AfriForum, an Afrikaner-led group. And even that group, which lobbied Trump's previous administration on their cause, said it was not taking up his offer.
We have to state categorically, we don't want to move elsewhere.
That's AfriForum CEO Callie Creel speaking on Saturday. Alongside Creel was Philip Buys, who chairs the Solidarity Trade Union, a group that says it represents 600,000 Afrikaner families.
We may disagree with the ANC, but we love the country. As in any community, there are individuals who wish to immigrate, but the repatriation of Afrikaners as refugees is not a solution for us. We want to build a future in South Africa.
Some said they appreciated Trump's gesture. Werner van Niekerk is a carpenter in Bothasig.
I think it's a very nice gesture from Donald Trump to offer us asylum over there.
He did not say whether he planned to take up the offer.